Hello and welcome to Vibrant Living Diaries, the podcast where we unlock the secrets of how you can renew your inner vitality and relearn what it means to live a life with energy and purpose. I'm your host, Danielle Grobman, and I'm proudly collaborating with the International Wellness Alliance. This alliance is home to experts across the world whose specialties allow us to cover the entire spectrum of health and wellness. Just as a disclaimer, the stances our guests take on this podcast and the topics we cover are not representative of our individual perspectives. We are here to gain a holistic understanding of all points of view. All information and advice we give here are purely for entertainment purposes. If you're planning on making any lifestyle and/or health changes based on what we cover here, please consult with your main medical wellness practitioner to find the best next steps for you to take on your wellness journey. Today we welcome Fiona Brennan, a renowned coach and mentor for ambitious entrepreneurs dedicated to helping them create amazing changes in both their business and professional lives. As we'll hear from Fiona in just a moment, she's not only a business success coach, but also a personal growth coach, and brings a wealth of experience and a unique perspective on what it means to find ourselves, be confident within ourselves, and how to unlock the confidence we all should be utilizing on tap every day. Today's episode will be centered around these ideas and more pertaining to the mentality of entrepreneurs and business owners alike. We're incredibly eager to have her with us today, so without further ado, Fiona, thank you for being here today.
I'm absolutely delighted, Danny. Thank you for having me.
Of course. The last we spoke, unless I remember incorrectly, you said that the way that you began your kind of entrepreneurial journey, it started with a little bit of a bout of imposter syndrome. And I was interested to know how that kind of shaped you and how that shapes now how you coach people and in your practice.
So the imposter syndrome, I guess I didn't have that word on it at the time. I didn't know what it was. And it's only later on, after study and learning all about different ways our mind can play with us to stop us from changing, that I was able to relate it back, say, oh, that's what that was. But at the time, I had left my corporate job. I had been a project manager in the construction facility side of things for 16 years, and I loved what I did and I was really good at it. And I had this desire to set up my own business and provide that service for lots of businesses who wanted to do renovations and expansions of their own physical commercial businesses. So I thought, that's great. I know how to do this. I'll just set up the business and, I'll get the business and turn up and do the thing that I love and know how to do best. But what I discovered was that inside me, I felt this, what I called not imposter syndrome, but I felt this little girl syndrome, where I was going to my very first job, being hired by somebody who had worked with me while I was in corporate, so knew my capabilities. But I was going into that absolutely frightened of my inability to turn up and say, hey, this is me. I'm here to offer this amazing service. I know that I'm amazing at what I do and all of this. I was just absolutely just pulled back to being this girl who had left school. And that's why I call it little girl syndrome. I felt all of a sudden that I was just after leaving school. I had no experience. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And especially in construction and facilities, that whole space, it's still greatly male dominated. So I was, as per it had always been, walking into a meeting quite male dominated. So it really just brought me back to, I was literally transported back to scenarios when I was leaving college and you didn't really know the big bad world as such. So you're always fighting for your corner. You're always looking to speak louder. You're always looking to validate and prove yourself. So I was taken back to that time, and this really rattled the whole launch of my business. So, I turned up and I did what I could, but inside I was absolutely cringing and just completely devalued what I was charging, completely devalued what I could up in meetings. So I knew myself I wasn't doing a great job. I knew myself that I wasn't turning up as the best version of me that could be there, that should be there. That went on for the first 12 months. And I knew I had to do something about it, because this business was not going to last if I continued the way I was continuing, because I was doing crazy hours for hardly any pay. So it was all about this proving energy, proving myself to be better than what everyone else. I don't even know who I was trying to prove it it to? Proving it to myself, I think. I needed that validation. And until I got that validation, I wasn't open to charging what I deserved to be charging. So therefore, like, this wasn't going to be a viable business. So I had to make some decisions, either to continue in this way and go nowhere fast, to just stop altogether and go back and get a job, or to do something about it and start to really kind of say, okay, what do I need to do to get out of this hole I was in, for want of a better word? And I went Googling one afternoon when I kind of broke down at the kitchen table. The kids were, I think it was summertime at this stage, the kids were off and I was completely stressed out. I was probably hitting burnout at this point, and I just was crying at the kitchen table because the kids wanted my time and I couldn't move forward in the jobs I was doing because I was spending so much time trying to prove. And it was like there was no money, or there was little money coming in. And I just thought, what is the point of this? I discovered that through that little short Google search, coaching came up. And this coaching program appeared on my screen. And everything it said was about believing in yourself, about valuing yourself, about changing your attitude, changing your thoughts, changing the outcome that you're experiencing. So it was a whole litany of stuff. And I just thought, oh my God, I need this. I absolutely need this. So I made a few phone calls and toyed with investing in this really like super program that ultimately you could start your own business with, but I just wanted to help myself. So I made the decision. It was quite a few months later because I sat on it for a long time because I didn't value myself enough to invest in myself, which is another thing that a lot of people struggle with. You know, it's great to invest in my kids' education or somebody else's, but actually when it comes to investing in yourself, that's a whole other challenge as well. So eventually I invested. And as I did the work of what I call now the work of me, the work of everything that I believe in or didn't believe in, the confidence levels, just really looking at myself from the inside out. As I did that work, the business started to change. And not just the business, but actually the personal life, the relationships I had at home, the relationships I had with my friends, and the relationship I had with myself. And about a year after qualifying, of course, I kind of stepped back, reflected, and I could see the very, very, very clear line of when you start to do the work, that's when things change. And everything that we are taught growing up, and even still as an adult, it's everything that's around us is focused on the outside. When you get that job, when you get that promotion, when you get that sale, when you find that beautiful partner, then you can feel love. You know, it's always about when something happens externally to us, then we can feel that inside. But that's not the thing. It's the reverse of that. We need to actually feel that ourselves first, and then the external appears. So when I feel good enough and valued enough and confident enough in myself that yes, I am worthy of having this business and going and asking for this price and turning up and saying, I'm doing this job for you, then the jobs appear. It grows, it expands because your energy shifts. You're taking that personal responsibility and ownership back. And again, an example of from your personal life, like when you love yourself enough to know that you're valued and worthy, you're no longer looking for somebody to fill in that gap. You're already believing that you're completely whole. So you're not looking for somebody else to complete you. It's no longer the Jerry Maguire quote of completing me. No, you're already complete. And when you really get that and feel that, then that is a different energy and vibration that oozes out and attracts the other complete who feel that way themselves, if that makes sense. So that is the journey from thinking that everything was external to discovering that everything starts internally. And that's the essence of the coaching that I offer, the coaching that I do with my clients. We start from the inside out.
It's interesting to hear that starting from the inside out, it's not a new concept. It's something that we've probably all heard before in one way or another. But for everyone, where they start, that's where it differs. Some people, they have to start because they have childhood traumas that they haven't, fully dealt with. And others, they're good with their childhood, but they got out of a really bad relationship maybe a few years back. So it doesn't go as far, but they still have to do some internal work. Where did it really start with you? Like, did you ever identify the root of why you weren't able to progress? And how did that change your perspective on how you approached life moving forward?
So I get that everything comes from your childhood, everything. So even that bad relationship that you said, okay, the childhood could be good, but you enter a bad relationship. But the piece of that relationship is connected to something in your child. So within the first few years, we hear things, we absorb things, we basically snapshot videos of everything that's happening around us in words and in physical pictures. And that gets locked into our minds. So when we then come across something as we're older, we're actually mirrored back to that incident in our childhood. So when you, I suppose, start to do the inside work, yes, you can go back there and you can pinpoint it, but it's actually not necessary, because the thing about it is you could spend ages trying to pinpoint it, because it might not necessarily be a big traumatic thing that happened. It could have been a very off the cuff remark that a teacher said to you. You're no good at maths, you'll never be. You can't speak up. You're not being picked for the team because you're too quiet. It's usually more likely stuff like that. Or your peers, your kids in the playground said something to you, didn't befriend you, or kept you out of something. That all knocks your confidence. That all chips away, and it leaves this kind of piece like, I must not be good enough. I must not be capable. I must not be able. And that gets locked in. And yes, fine, you can go back and you can work on that, and you can realize that, okay, I need to believe something different. So it's not necessary that we go back and pinpoint it, but it's actually just coming to terms with the fact, this is what's holding me back. I'm not asking for my value, for my worth, because something that has told me that I'm not good enough. It's as simple as that. So now what I have to do is, right now, what's holding me back is my confidence, or my thinking that I can't do something, charge something, be something, have something, right? So this is where we get to work now in the present. So the past is fine, but at the end of the day, the past is the past, and it's got its uses going back for sure for really traumatic events. But mostly the most powerful place to work in is the present, and looking at, okay, for me to move forward, what do I need to start changing and believing about myself to move forward? So creating those new empowering beliefs, but also visualizing, and more importantly, practicing being present. And when you practice and really develop and master, and it is an ongoing mastery, the power of being present, you're no longer caught by your past, and you're no longer trapped by the worry of the future. You're just in the here and now. And in any given moment, what is the most powerful thing that I can do right now to help me move forward? So it's a combination of those two things, working on being present and working on what is it that I need to start believing? What do I need to start changing the language, changing the old track of what wasn't good enough, instead of walking down that track constantly, creating a new track, a new path to start walking down. And the more that you practice and actually start to embed that and embody that, the more it becomes natural.
There was another guest that was on, and we were talking about this idea of neuroplasticity, and how if you use the analogy of you're a traveler in a jungle, this idea of a worn path is kind of what you're hitting on now, of if you keep going down the same path, if you keep doing the same thing, then it's just a worn path, and you'll choose that rather than going down another path, because then you'd have to cut through all the branches, and you would have to do extra work. For people that are just starting off and trying to understand, okay, how can I change the language? How can I change the way that I talk to myself, that I talk to others, that I treat myself? It can be a bit challenging, because in the beginning, all they're seeing is just these thorns and these, branches and twigs and everything in the way. It's not the worn path. It's the new path. So have you ever encountered someone in your practice that maybe didn't want to go down that path even though they needed to? And how were you able to kind of help them through that? Because for a lot of people, it's they like what they can see in front of them, and if they can't see what's in front of them, then they get a bit anxious, and that's not going to be conducive to any kind of productivity or bettering yourself. Because if you're just anxious about taking that step, then you're going to do everything in your power to either not take that step or meet it with resistance, because it's so much work, I don't know what I'm doing, this and that. So how do you actually approach this so that people can come at it and think of it as something more digestible, for lack of better words?
Yeah. No, and that is actually it, Danny, with every client, every person I meet. So the first thing is, right, you see the path that you've always taken. And so therefore, that is the path of least resistance, because it's worn down and it's easier to go that way. And we've always done it that way. But the question to ask at the beginning of any of this is, why are you here? Because when we're starting to do this work, it's because we're not happy with where we are. We're struggling where we are. We're feeling unwell. Maybe we're even unhealthy. We've got illnesses because we've made ourselves ill with the unhappiness. So you want something different. And what you want different is over here. And the first thing to do is really look at what is it that you want to be different and get really juicy into that vision, the clarity of the vision of what you want instead, because this is where you are over here going down the path of least resistance. It's, there's no twigs or bushes in the jungle of this path. It's easy to walk down, but you don't like it. It's causing you pain. It's causing you unhappiness and you want to change. But what you want to change is over here. And as you said, you've got to start knocking down, the brambles and the bushes. But the first thing to discover is, what does this look like? So that you can connect to it, so that you can see it and want it and desire it. And when you build up that momentum inside you to say, yes, it looks like this, it feels like this. Oh my God, imagine if I had that. I really want that. I desire that. What do I have to do to make this happen? Okay, so now you've got the desire and you've got the motivation, because you need that to start to knock the first branch down. And personal development work is not complicated. It's actually very basic. It's very straightforward. And the wonder is why we're not all just doing it. The challenge with it is it's not easy. It's simple. It's simple, but it's not easy, because it requires you to show up, turn up, and start to make changes. It requires you to pick up that axe and start to actually chip away at that path. And that's effort. And the problem is the mind that we are working with does not want to change, does not like change. So it will do everything in its power to stop you. All these thoughts, all these reasons, all these procrastinations, all these justifications that we do are being sent to us from our mind. So one of the first things I do with my clients is teach them about the mind and how it works, because when you understand what's trapping you, then you can start to really turn up and say, hey, hang on a minute, I want to take the power back. I'm not going to let this thing get in my way all the time. I don't want to be here. So it still requires you to make effort, and it's not easy. It's a mastery. There'll be like recommitments required, but it's little changes, little small changes. So it's not to go and get the axe and try and knock it all down at once. It's little small changes that make the difference. And before you know it, it's like that path, going through the field, or even at the top of a ski slope, you've always gone down that way. And this one is all, full with snow. How am I going to make it down the ski slope with all this snow? But if you just do it the very first time, it's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. You're going to be toppling over. You're going to get covered in snow. It's going to be but come back up again and repeat it again. And the more you focus over on this side, repeating that path, what's happening to the paths that you used to go on, snow is falling and that's starting to cover over. And eventually over time, and this is where the personal commitment comes with personal development. It is a personal commitment to change. The path does eventually get covered over, and your path that you've been going down as a new path is now actually completely smooth and easy.
It's an interesting concept to think about. So you're teaching your clients how they can go down this new path. Do you find that there are any misconceptions or preconceived notions that people have about their own growth or their journey before they even take that step that you found has just become a pattern that if more people were aware of, they could start to focus on that and clear away that block or that obstacle, for lack of better words, before they actually start to go down this journey? Because there are some people that they are ready to make a change. They are ready to, start fully in their personal development, but then they hit an obstacle or there's a big boulder in that path that they can't get around. They can't climb over. They just look at it and they think, oh my goodness, what am I staring at? Because it was something that they either weren't prepared for or they just had no idea that it could even exist and it could even block them from their path. Have you noticed anything like that in your practice, and any advice maybe for people that are just starting in their journey for them to just cognizant of?
So I guess the biggest thing is knowing that it's a mastery, knowing that it's an ongoing journey, and that once you start to do some bit of work on it, it's a constant and literally until the day you die. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when you chip away, if you imagine you're climbing a mountain, you climb the first piece and it's like, oh yay, okay, I've got to here and that's great. And now I can see a bit clearer now. So you're on the base and you go up to the first hike, and this is the first part of the journey, and you're starting to develop new little habits, and you're starting to become aware, and you're starting to change, maybe the very first couple of things that you've been thinking about to a different, more empowering story. So you reach up to the very first little level, and you can start to see from that level. But then I want to see more. I want more of this. I want better. So you decide to go up another level. So you're keeping going. But as you're climbing, it can be, again, climbing, there's a challenge in it. It's the same concept repeated over and over again. It's like, because I work with business owners, they can be anything from literally just starting out to having like basic turnover in your business to 6-figure businesses. Okay. It's the same stuff that you deal with at the 6-figure level and 7-figure level as it is when you're starting out. It's just a different version of it, but it's the same, if you know what I mean. I guess what it boils down to is the tools, and I don't even like to use tools, but the learnings that you take on board at the beginning stage are the same ones that are going to take you through those blocks, big boulders, as you said, Danny, that come up, because they all work. At the end of the day, you are empowering yourself with words, and the best thing that you can do is become aware at any level that you are on the mountain, at any level that you are in your business growth. What is the story that I'm spinning here? And where is my presence right now as I'm spinning it? Am I spinning it because I'm thinking of something in the past that didn't work out? Or I'm spinning it thinking about something in the future that may or may not happen? When you bring it back, when you learn to bring it back, what is the most powerful thing I can do for myself, for this action right now? And it's at any point along the journey, whatever that boulder is. The boulder may be massive, feel massive, but there's nothing so big that can't be broken down. And I guess in my work that I do, Danny, as well, it's the wonderful space of neuroscience, coaching tools and techniques and all of that, all of the modalities I use. But as well as that, I have project management strategies, which is all about breaking the thing to do down. So what does this project of tackling this boulder really look like? How can we just piecemeal it so that we can just chip away one piece at a time? And I think what really helps people is when you break it down into the little small steps of what they can do right now, and then tomorrow what they can do, and the next day what they can do.
Talking a lot about, empowering ourselves, and that's like a common theme throughout all of this. I'm curious to know, on the flip side, what role does vulnerability play in all of this, addressing vulnerabilities and confronting them?
Yeah, I think vulnerabilities are absolutely necessary. I think the more open and vulnerable we can be, not just, in front of other people, but even to ourselves, the more honest we can get with what's going on with ourselves first. A wonderful coach and mentor I've had use the phrase like, what is the honesty behind the honesty? Because sometimes we're actually not being truly honest with ourselves. And we peel back the layers in that way, firstly with ourselves, then we can then show up and share that vulnerability with others. But vulnerability to others is giving others permission to be vulnerable, and moving away from having to have it right, having to get it right, and using that power in itself, to be empowered, if that makes sense.
Yeah. A lot of vulnerabilities can be from deeply rooted issues or traumas or anything that happened in the past that maybe you're not even consciously aware of. How can you be honest even if you don't want to be honest? Like what does it take for someone to actually hit that point of, this is going to be challenging. I know that this is going to, change my whole perception of life, change the paradigm in which I view the world, but actually being honest with yourself. How can we know or begin to identify if we're following in that same pattern? Because what we may think is a vulnerability, or what we may think is, what's wrong with us, may not actually be what's really wrong with us. and being able to identify that.
Mind is a powerful tool, and it can trick ourselves into thinking we know what we know. It may require sitting and just having that support of someone who will, I suppose, guide you through. So if you're the person that you know that, okay, is living the authentic life, but there's possibly not, the question is, are they aware of that? And then the other question is, do they need to be aware of it? Do they want to be aware of it? They're choosing subconsciously to not be aware of it. The question would be then, well, how is that impacting their life? If they are deep down unhappy with living their so-called authentic life, it's like everything looks like it's all right on the inside, but you know deep down that there's something off. There's a misalignment. It feels, yourself, the person will know themselves that it's not fully real, that there's something there. Now, they may not know what's behind it. Maybe that's been blocked so much at this stage, it's just completely, as they say, blocked out from memory. It is back there somewhere. But until they get to a point where they recognize the incongruence in their life and decide to investigate, do something about it, it will just be the way it is. That's just me.
We are almost up for our time today, but if there's any lasting bit of advice or insight that you have from your work, I think a proper way to end would be, what would that be? And how can people reach you if they're interested in digging deeper into these kinds of topics and conversations?
A way to wrap up is to kind of, I suppose, summarize what I have found through my work, not just as a coach, but in the project management world. Because I remember when I started, I kept saying, oh, I'm just new as a coach. I haven't coached before. I'm just new, I've no experience. But actually, when I sat back with my own coach and opened that up, I realized I'd actually been coaching for 20 years. Because when you're working as a project manager, you're working with people all the time. You're empowering them to work to create this vision, and you're leading a team of people. You're coaching them as the challenges of this project journey continues. So the coaching work I do is all about that journey, because when people come to me, it's because it's a change, and every project is about change. So we have a current situation and we have an ideal vision situation. And, in the project world, it's about physically creating this structure or whatever. There's a vision of it. But one of the first pieces that's so important is getting clear on your vision. If you don't know what it is that you want to build or want to have instead of, it leaves it really challenging to move out from, because the old stuff will have that strong pull, pulling you back to that old path. Linking and connecting to the vision is so important. So one of the pieces that I would do is help people create that vision. And we're not talking about like big, massive visions. It can be just a vision of having more space in your life, a vision of a beautiful relationship with yourself or with somebody else. It doesn't have to be this vision of like an 8-figure business with, thousands of people in my whatever. It can be that as well. But the essence of it is getting clear on the vision. So the clarity of vision is your foundation. And then to support that foundation is your belief in yourself to that vision. And that is the work that we do. And then just continuously working on the new habits to help you to turn up every day to be that person who has that life, who has that change already here. So when you're at point A, which is your current reality, and you want to get to point B, which is the difference, the change that you want to make, the secret is to actually go to point B, go to where the change is in your feelings, in your actions, in your thoughts, in your words. So you bring it forward. You're pulling it to you as opposed to dragging yourself up there. So I guess in summary, the essence of the most powerful thing for anyone who is looking to make a change is getting clear on what that change is. So get pen and paper out and just describe it. If you had a magic wand in your hand right now, or a genie in a bottle, what do you want instead? Yeah, I think that's, I suppose, the way to wrap it up. My business is Inspire Action Success, and the way to reach me is you can get me on LinkedIn. I'm under Fiona Brennan. Connect with me on the website and send a little request there to have a chat. I hope that is helpful, Danny. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time and for sharing your insights. And that wraps up today's episode of Vibrant Living Diaries. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with us. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing your expertise, and to the International Wellness Alliance for making this all possible. And we hope that you've been inspired to take the next step forward in your own wellness journey. As always, we're eager to hear your thoughts and experiences. Connect with us on our social media platforms and share how you're integrating the knowledge gained here into your daily life. I'm Danielle Grobman and can't wait to continue this journey with you in our next episode. Until then, keep exploring, stay curious, and embrace the vibrant life you deserve. Speak soon.